Okay, we are recording. Danny, how are you today, mate?
I'm good, Stu. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. It's nice to get to meet you and to talk records today. Before we jump into your playlist, talk me through a little bit about these 18, 19 months of lockdown that is hopefully becoming a distant memory now. But just tell me how that affected you personally and creatively.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure like every band you've had on, they all have a similar story about how, it really it took the lifeblood of our industry, which is live music, and that was just taken away from us, and we had all the usual struggles that bands had, canceling tours, rescheduling tours, and changing dates for releases of songs and all. But then we also had this weird, extra little unusual, unfortunate coincidence in that we shared a name with the virus, which was really just bizarre. Initially, it was like, what is this real life? Is this something? This is like a weird dream or something?
Yeah,
And and yeah, it definitely threw me, and I was like, this is going to be the end of us, like, as a band, never mind. But like, I mean, you have all the initial worries that everyone had. First of all, is my family going to be okay? Are we ever going to
sure.
be able to gig again? And then when the dust settles, it's like, okay, and is this going to affect us? And I think weirdly, the more sort of well known like the virus, the COVID, coronavirus, whatever you call it, became, I was less concerned about the effect it would have on us. It's like words. The word took on its own meaning, the coronavirus and COVID, and it just sort of meant something else. And so yeah, the fact that our band is the Coronas, I think after a certain stage, I was just like, you know what, it's just a name. It's not really going to
Yeah.
make a huge difference. And our first inclination was, of course, to poke fun at ourselves, and we tweeted Corona the beer, asking them, what have you guys got a plan to rebrand? What are you gonna do? Like, we're just asking for a friend, and they didn't reply. But yeah, so it was just one of those things. You had to sort of laugh at the situation, I suppose,
Yeah.
and the strangeness of it. And yeah, but in answer to your question, I mean, yeah, creatively, I think I went through waves in the lockdowns. One lockdown, I'd find myself being really creative and loads happening. And another lockdown, I would just be watching the Tiger King and the Last Dance, and I wouldn't be able to pick up a guitar, play the piano.
Yeah.
And I think you have to allow yourself to have those ups and downs. I've always found as a writer, and try not to be too hard on yourself. I'm now at the stage, we have a new record coming out now in October, and that was written really last year in the second round of the lockdowns and stuff. And I haven't really written too much this year because we went to London, we recorded it in January, and then we've been sort of making plans, and then gigs came back, and we had a lot of gigs that were rescheduled that we're catching up on. And now it's starting to get to me where I'm like, God, I need to get back right and get a start on what will
Yeah.
be the next record. And but even at that, I'm like, okay, but don't be too hard on yourself. There's a lot going on. You'll get around to it eventually. Like,
Yeah.
so, I think, yeah, as I say, it comes in waves for us anyway as a band. And that was a really long answer to your simple question. I'm very sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Well, look, let's start your playlist.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you, Danny, please tell me for track one, please, a song you regard as having the greatest ever intro.
Yeah, well, this was a tough one, and I could have. I was thinking about a lot of different songs, and for some reason, Jeff Buckley kept coming into my head, and I even could have picked a couple of his songs,
Yeah.
but I went for Grace, the title track of his album, and I just love. I remember hearing this album for the first time, and I think up until that point, I had been maybe just listening to a little bit more accessible rock, like Oasis and
Sure.
Travis and these type of bands. And when I heard Grace, the album, and what you could do with the genre and how far you could push vocally and arrangement wise and musicianship, I was like, oh wow, you can do all that sort of stuff. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be a 3 minute pop rock song with two verses, two choruses, and a middle eight. You can just have an intro that goes on for ages and meanders
Yeah.
around. And I thought, yeah, that album had a lot of that. It had moments like, and the intro to Grace is just beautiful when the guitar starts and then it drops and it all
Yeah.
cracks in, and it's just like wow, like So that's just one that popped in my head. As I say, probably if you caught me on another day, I might have said something else, but that was definitely one that came to me there.
Oh, it's a cracker, mate. And I'll tell you what, I think. I think we're 445 episodes into this now, and I think you're the first person to choose Jeff Buckley
No way.
for that question,
Cool.
and I'm always surprised, because I think "Last Goodbye" is a really good intro,
Yeah.
and it's just got that lovely little kind of build, and then it just all sort of just drops on you. It's wonderful.
100%. I was going to pick Last Goodbye as well. We actually,
Yeah.
when the band started, we used to cover Last Goodbye and I loved being able to play it and trying to do my best Jeff Buckley impression. But I decided to go with Grace, but I could have easily picked Last Goodbye as well.
Wonderful. When you write, Danny, like, are you aware that there was, the way that people would have discovered, and not many people did discover Jeff Buckley when he was alive, unfortunately. It seems that a lot of people have sort of found him obviously since. But when Grace was released and singles would have been released from that record, like, the way that people would have heard that and listened to that is far different from how people are listening to music now and getting their records. So with the kind of evolution of things like streaming services and bands utilizing apps like TikTok and things like that to kind of get their art across, how much of that and the importance of getting onto platforms and playlists and things like that filters through into your creative process, if at all?
Yeah, I try not to let it filter through to the creative process. I think we're at an interesting we have an interesting standpoint on it, because when the Corona started off, we started the band 15 years ago. Our first album came out, and at that stage it was still physical sales. So we've seen the industry sort of change and evolve over the last 15 years. As I say, first record went like triple platinum in Ireland, and we could actually see people were still buying CDs. That came out in 2007, and that was just the start of when things started to go to more downloads. And then it was iTunes and then Napster and all that sort of stuff. And now you can see it, as you say, with streaming, and now even what I would say the new streaming now is TikTok, and they're the numbers that really record companies are looking at now, which is a strange one for us. But definitely all the way along, we've never tried to let it change our creative process, and we've always just sort of tried to focus on the song. And I think that has stood to us in our own development as a band, and how our music has evolved over our few albums, and that we've just sort of grown with it. And we've been very lucky that we've over the years we've gotten so much radio support in Ireland, and that initially that was a big driver for our live success in Ireland. The fact that we can tour and play big rooms in Ireland was because we were getting national radio here. But I think even now it doesn't quite equate the way it used to with radio, actually. And I see it with some new bands in Ireland who are getting lots of radio play, but it doesn't equate to ticket sales like the way it used to when we started. And it seems to me to be still a bit up in the air. It's like it isn't as tangible. The even TikTok, I mean, there's other acts in Ireland as well who have huge TikTok followers and huge streaming numbers, but still wouldn't sell tickets. It's sort of a strange one, and it's like you need everything to align at once to really. And I think as I say, we were lucky in that we were sort of like a student band, and we had one song that got played on regional radio first of all in Ireland, and then it went national, and we just really built it up over the years. And then we got to experience the more major label side of things. After our third label, we signed to Island Records, and we moved to London, and we lived there for a few years. And we were signed on the same day as Catfish and the Bottlemen, and I'll never forget, they had a bigger signing party than us, and that was
an extra case of champagne at their one.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my first indicator going, okay, yeah,
there's levels to this, right?
Yeah. And then I could see a couple of months later they were everywhere, and we were still trying to email Ireland going, what's the plan for our next single? I know the first one didn't go as well as you thought, but it was funny because we released a single with Ireland, and I thought it did great. It got lots of play on XFM, but it didn't connect with Radio 1, and that was it. And we were just another sob story on the major label thing at the time. And I don't regret rolling the dice with the major and all that, but now even still, I think majors are less inclined to take a punt on someone and hope that a song connects on radio. Now you have to actually go to the labels with a certain amount of TikTok and streaming numbers before they even invest even any more in you, whereas
Absolutely.
even with us, they took a punt on us in the UK because we had done well in Ireland, and but I don't think that's even happening anymore. So it is ever evolving, and to be honest, for my own sanity, I try and stay away from it. And even when
Sure.
other bands ask me for their opinion on what do you think we should do, I'm like, I don't know. The industry just changes every couple of years.
Yeah.
And so in answer to your question again, long story short, we try and not overthink even radio or anything else other than trying to get the best out of the song. And if we like it, then it tends, if you're proud of it yourself and you like the song yourself, that's as good as you can do. And it's trying to forget where it might end up and just stay
Absolutely.
in the moment when you're writing it. Yeah.
Tell me about the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Yeah, well, I went for the Cranberries on this one, Linger, which the Cranberries were one of my favorite bands. It was the first record, I think, first album I bought, I think. Um, and I remember just being like blown away that this band were big in America and they were from Limerick, like down the road, like, and it was like, oh my God. And a female lead singer and she was rocking out, and Linger is just a beautiful song. Like again, it's got a great intro as well, actually,
Mm,
and it's just a beautiful song. And I remember putting on that album, and like there's albums when you're younger that you put on and you're so engrossed in it, and it's just like, oh my God, like that's amazing, and just start to finish, just it really touching you emotionally, and that was probably the first song that did that. And I loved the Cranberries. I remember going to see them when I was like, I think my mother brought me to see them when I was 12 or something, like, and they were huge in the mid 90s. So I would have been, yeah, whatever, 10 or late 90s, I suppose. I would have been 12. So yeah, it was amazing to see an Irish band like go global, and obviously U2 were there before
mm,
them. And but I suppose I just didn't really relate to U2. They were big in the 80s when I was only born in the late 80s. So
yeah.
it was it was cool to see this new band, and see that they're playing rock music and taking over the world, and I just love that song.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful record, Linger.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Like I'm well old, so I was like, I kind of would have been sort of late teens when the Cranberries exploded in the mid 90s, and it was mad. It was like they're storming the States,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I think it's the video to Ridiculous Thoughts, I think it is, and it's just all kind of concert footage, and you just see like how big they'd got. It was
Yeah.
like, wow, this band are literally smashing it
and
worldwide.
and they had that thing where it hit America first for whatever reason, and that sort of thing used to happen where a song could just connect on radio.
Yeah,
And I remember Noel, the guitar player, actually telling me, I met him and I'm a big fan, and I met him and he was like, they were on tour they were supporting, I think, the Hothouse Flowers or someone like that around Europe. And when I think it was Linger or Dreams, one of the first singles anyway, connected, and they were taken off that tour and brought to America, and like literally going from playing to 40 people as a support band to going and filling rooms in America, people singing the song back to you, like, and that was the way it could happen. Then your band
yeah,
could break that easy, and then it came back. And at this stage, they weren't even that big. They weren't big in Ireland either. Never mind the UK. Like, so
yeah,
it was. Then they came back. People saw what was going on in America, and it came back. And I think Hosier has a similar enough story in that he sort of connected more on radio in America first, and then it sort of filtered back to the UK. And I think that can happen sometimes. Whereas as Irish bands, we would always look to the UK as our stepping stone to take it on. And but it doesn't always have to be that way, I suppose. But yeah, and the lyric in it as well. That's why it's emotional.
yeah.
Even now, I'm in too deep. I'm such a fool for you. Like, it's just that thing of you sing it and oh, I know what she's thinking. Like, so
It's
yeah,
taking nothing away from the songwriting, but that lyric you just said, it's so simple,
yeah,
and like that's what makes it, I guess, so instantly relatable. And because we've all been there, and I
yeah,
think that's just that connection is formed like
yeah.
that, and that's without her. It's the fact that she's singing it makes it so beautiful as well. Like,
100%. But
oh
you're dead right. So simple. It's like the first time you hear it, like
yeah,
you got me wrapped around your finger, and you're just like,
yeah,
that's it. Like
Yeah,
that's everyone's felt that. And
yeah,
it's like it's not one of those lyrics that you need to hear a few times and work it out and,
yeah,
poetic. It's just like honest and emotional. So
yeah,
yeah, it's a great tune.
absolutely. Well, let's stay in the formative years. I'm going to ask you, Danny, to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please, mate.
Yeah, well, I went for Radiohead here again. I was in secondary in the late nineties, so it was, my I was 14 in 99. So yeah, I remember the Bends being an album that I loved. It going in a bit earlier than that. I think OK Computer came out in 95, did it? But
Yeah.
for whatever reason, I just remember, I think because I couldn't play any of the OK Computer songs, but in our band, we could play High and Dry. So
Yeah.
we used to do play
They got
like
really clever on OK
yeah,
Computer, didn't
exactly. It was just like I was a three-chord trick. So some people would say I still am, but yeah, back then it was. I remember us covering High and Dry. So when we were in secondary school, about 13, 14, I'd say we had little lunch times. The few people who were forming bands would get together, and and that's really where our band started. So
Yeah.
we would play High and Dry just as a three-piece, and it was great. And so whenever I hear that song, it reminds me. We called it. We had them at lunchtimes. It was like music fest. They would call it in our school, and it just reminds me of that. And we would play High and Dry, and it's just, again, it's a beautiful song. And I mean,
Yeah.
Radiohead, one of my favorite bands of all time, and still to this day, like I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with them. Like I've seen them so many times, and yeah, they're incredible. But I loved the early stuff, and even when I remember when OK Computer came out first, like a bit like Grace, it took me a while to get my head around it. It's like, oh, okay, it's not like, verse chorus, and
Yeah.
the simplicity of Street Spirit or High and Dry or
Mm.
Fake Plastic Trees or whatever. It was a lot more elaborate, but as a couple of listens, even a couple of years, you go back to it and you're like, oh my god, like,
Yeah.
and Let Down off OK Computer is
Oh,
probably my favorite song of all time. Like, it's literally, when if someone just said to me, just pick one song now to play, like I would pick it, like, and just put it on if everyone was listening and I had one song to pick, because it's just magic. It's just the
yeah.
the way the guitars mix together and everything. I love that song. I love that album. But I went for High and Dry because it reminds me of being in school and trying to play it. Like, yeah.
So, so playing at school, lunchtimes and things like that, was a career in music something that you was focused on, or was there anything else that you sort of wanted to be when you was at school?
I think deep down I knew it's what I wanted to do, but I probably didn't admit it. I went to university and studied business. Like, I have a commerce degree in UCD, and even all through university we were a student band. We were playing gigs. It was just to do something. And when we got into final year, the band actually started to take off a little bit. Well, I say that. I mean, we were doing gigs around Dublin, 200, 300 people, but there was people there. They were full, like,
Mm.
Um, and I was almost like going to drop out of uni, but I was like, I've come done my 2.5 years. I might as well finish it out, So I was glad that I did, just to have it, I suppose. And but after that, we said we'd give it a year and see what happened. But no, when I was in school, I I did know myself. I think that it's what I wanted to do, something in music anyway. I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed writing songs. I enjoyed singing, and then I was very much into sport. I still am. Like, I'm a huge soccer fan. I still play a bit of soccer and Gaelic football, which is a big sport here. And I played Gaelic football at a high level when I was 18, and that was the thing that sort of I put a lot of my focus into. But I think the discipline of actually playing sport at a decent level stood to me when it came to music as well, because it was everything around it. When all the rest of my friends were going off on boozy holidays after school, I was like training and looking after what I was eating and trying to be focused on staying fit and stuff. And that
Are you, are
definitely
you
stood.
are you pretty driven then, Danny?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I'm competitive. I love sport in that way. And I think we are working hard work. And I think, especially in the early days of the band, we didn't have any label. We were self-managed, and used to just work really hard and gig, 4 times a weekend, and whatever else we could do. And we really built it from the ground up. So definitely in the early years, we worked hard. Now I think we found a good balance where we've gotten to the stage in Ireland where we're still thankfully selling out big venues, and we get to tour and do our thing, and we've got a world tour coming up at the end of the year, and I'm so excited for it, and we get to play big shows in the UK as well. Like we're playing Shepherd's Bush in September, and I cannot wait for that. It's such an amazing venue, like, and so being able to do things like that, you know, without breaking through in a sort of major sense, that's okay. I'm happy, and I always say there's no guarantee that Chris Martin is a happier human than I am. You know, it's just your success is what you get out of it, and definitely in the early days I was driven for sure, and I still am driven. I'm still ambitious and hardworking, but I think I've got a better maybe balance in life, and just enjoying the process, and not, you know, why aren't we getting this, or why isn't this happening, and why did we get dropped by this label, and why isn't this, you know, whatever. Like you can always look at external things, but I think we've gotten to the stage now, and especially post pandemic as well, where you're just enjoying the journey, and you're trying to appreciate what you have, and we definitely have that, you know.
Beautiful. Tell me about the first song you remember buying from a record shop, mate.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, this is a little bit of an embarrassing one. I'm sure everyone has a few embarrassing ones, but my
this
first
is meant
single,
to be embarrassing.
Okay,
this one.
yeah,
no one was cool when they got their first record.
exactly.
No chance.
Well, the first single I bought was Gangster's Paradise, Coolio.
That's all right.
And it's still a tune. It's still a tune. Coolio was only in Ireland recently. I saw this on people's Instagram. It came up with me. He was around town singing Gangster's Paradise in some pub, like. But it was such a tune. It was such a tune. There's no denying. It still stands up there when those strings come in, whatever that sample is. You know, it's a head bopper, and I loved it, like, you know. And as I say, I probably could have picked the Cranberries as the first album that I bought as well. It was around that time, but definitely I remember going out and buying What's the Story, Morning Glory, and not only buying the album, but buying the songbook, which was the thing for me. I just started to play guitar and I wanted to play all these songs, and I remember buying the songbook, which was the thing that I think has probably faded over the years. But a songbook, you used to be able to go and buy the songbook with all the chords, and I would just literally play the album start to finish just along with it. And you know, even like if I found like a little mistake in the songbook, I go, I don't think he's playing it that way. I think he's playing it this way. And then I'd check it out and I see, he's playing it with a capo. It's not played that way. He plays it a different way. And those sort of things are really good for me and my ear of getting used to it. And I often find and this has stood to me even recently, I probably don't do it enough recently, but when there's an album that I like, if I go and try and play it, like if there's a new band that I like and I go and just try and play along, or it ends up giving me new ideas for chord progressions and even melodies and stuff that ends up helping my writing, you know. And I think it was Noel Gallagher himself who said, if you rob enough things from different places, different musicians, you end up with something original, like, you know. And but I often find when I actually sit down and try and play other bands' music, like I did at the start of the pandemic as well, where I was locked in a house in West Kerry in Dingle in the southwest corner of Ireland, and I had a piano there and I wanted to do something. So every night on the Corona's Instagram, I would just pick a random cover and play, and it was just something to take my mind off it. And it ended up, people would be tuning in every night, and I'd just do a different. Initially, I started doing different Irish bands, and then I just started playing whatever song. But after a while, it was like I did it, and then because initially everyone thought the pandemic was 2 weeks long or something, and they went on and on and on and on, and I was doing these every night, and eventually I was like, this is actually causing me more stress than enjoyment, you know. I'm trying to think of a song, I get to lunchtime and I'd be like, oh god, I gotta go and learn a new song now and play it tonight, like. And eventually, so I was one day I just turned on the Instagram. I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I feel like writing some music myself now. So good luck. Like, but it had done what it needed to do. Like, I was just like, that's enough. It's a bit like Forrest Gump when he was running forever. And then he just turns around and just goes, I think I'm going to go home now. That's enough of that. Like, you know? So, I had one of those moments where I was like, I'm not really enjoying this anymore. This is becoming sort of counterproductive, like me trying to stress over what song I'm going to play. So that was the end of the covers, but definitely Oasis was songs that I first learned. And when I bought What Story Morning Glory, I remember sitting down and learning it. And even now, I was at a session in Dingle at the weekend, and I started playing Half the World Away with a friend of mine, and we were doing the harmonies. And you know, I love Oasis. I love you know, especially the early stuff, but I still like them as well. The later stuff.
You know, as a songwriter, And I mean, Oasis people have chosen Oasis for multiple questions on this podcast over the years, and I mean they know their way around an intro as well.
Yeah.
But I think with What's the Story, I think definitely maybe it's just got that excitement of a band where, you know, like most debut albums, you're throwing everything at it and you want to scream it from the rooftops, 100%. But I think with What's the Story, it just feels like Noel Gallagher just picked up a guitar and was like, oh, I'm just going to write an amazing record this morning, and then I'm going to write an amazing record this afternoon. And it was like, and I justify that by, you know, I was DJing in sort of, you know, my venue and stuff around this point, and seeing the impact that Oasis had on alternative music culture was unbelievable. It just took it from, you know, Nirvana took it somewhere a few years previously, but, you know, to most people on the street, they were still them scruffy blokes that made that noise.
Yeah.
Oasis come along and they're wearing Ben Sherman, they're wearing cool clothes with cool haircuts, talking about fighting fucking football. And it's like, all of a sudden, the lads in the football terraces are loving Oasis. And it was like, all of a sudden, it was all right to like guitar music again. And it was like, and I, you know, have been sort of playing all of these indie bands in my club for, you know, 5 years previous, and all of a sudden the demographic of people that would get into Oasis, and then before you knew it, they bought a Blur album. They're like, oh yeah, no, I bought a Suede album the other day, or like a Pulp record, and it was like they changed so much. I think Noel Gallagher famously said, I remember walking on stage at Nebworth and thinking, fuck, I've literally killed the indie scene. I've took it to the masses now. And but I think that comes down to like timing, and everything was right for that kind of movement. And but essentially, like if you listen to all of them tracks on What's the Story, they're amazing. And the bit that really hammers it home for me, Dan, is when they released Some Might Say, which I think is one of the best tracks on that record.
Yeah.
It's a shame that Roll With It gets all the attention because of the Blur thing. So I actually think that's one of the weaker tracks on that album.
Me too, yeah.
And but Some Might Say is fucking amazing. And the CD single, right? I don't know if you bought it. The B-sides, right? I mean, this is back in the days of B-sides where a lot of bands would throw something, I'll just throw that on there. It was a session from here, or it was something that weren't made. The B-sides were Acquiesce and Talk Tonight.
Oh my God.
He threw them at B-sides. Like, how confident was he of what was round the corner? He must have just thought, it ain't slowing down. We can throw them as a B-side because I've got this coming. Master Plan was a B-side. You know, like Half a World Away was a B-side. You just think, oh my God, the confidence in his ability at that point must have been through the roof. Like,
I know.
God.
It is crazy. It's so crazy. I'd say that was really interesting though, as you say, DJing and seeing it change, like because it was pretty quickly. Like it went from being an indie thing to a global thing. Like I'd say that was mad seeing that change. Like, you know. Yeah,
it was crazy because I've been like Blur from where I'm from, and so Blur used to play my venue and stuff when they were doing, you know, when the first record come out, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, the furore in that mid-90s, it just was unbelievable. Like Liam and Damon, they weren't like, you know, alternative heroes. They were pop stars. Jarvis Cocker was a pop star. And like, you know, they're on like they're on top of the pops. They're hosting on top of the pops. They're on all, you know, they're winning Brits left, right, and centre. And all of a sudden, I remember seeing like Blur in all these tiny little venues over the years with the first couple of albums, and then obviously things got bigger with Parklife. But then I remember seeing them at Wembley Arena when The Great Escape came out, Country House and all that, and thinking, oh, I'm the tallest person in this gig, and it was literally teenage girls, just screaming like it was like the Beatles, and it was like, oh, they're pop stars now. And it was just seeing it all change. It was really interesting. And sort of just watching their movements. And it was that kind of mid-90s lad culture type thing that I think exposed guitar music to such a bigger, the Mondays and the Rosies to a degree, you know, 5, 6, 7 years previously. But I think Oasis just opened it up
Well,
like
it's probably one of those
massively.
things. There wouldn't have been an Oasis without the Mondays and the
Of
Roses. So
course, yeah,
they had their part to play, like in inspiring Noel and his writing. But
yeah,
you're right, yeah. I mean, I love Blur as well. I was sort of at the time I was team Oasis, but over the years now I just love everything Damon
yeah,
Albarn does. I think he's so talented, like
yeah,
so. Yeah,
absolutely.
great time for music. Like, it's just so good and simple again, like simple songs that you can sit down and play in the guitar and they stand up. Like,
Yeah,
as you say, probably a little bit like the Nirvana thing. You didn't need the noise. The Nirvana thing was a mood. Now, they had some amazing songs as well, but it was more about the vibe and the attitude. Whereas, for me, it was the songs on What's the Story, like, and it's just like, as you say, some might say, don't Look Back in Anger. Like, just
yeah,
songs that are just gonna be there forever. Like, they'll long outlast
absolutely,
us. Like.
absolutely. Tell me about the song that soundtrack your years going clubbing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Again, I was never really a clubber. What have I got? Oh yeah, I wrote down Daft Punk and Chemical Brothers. They're the dance acts that I love, that I do
Yeah,
love, and I'd actually listen to their albums. And I remember One More Time, that album with Daft Punk. I can't remember what the album's called, but anyway, I love that. My brother was mad into it, but definitely Prodigy as well. I loved. My brother was a huge Prodigy fan, so as growing up, I was sort of like listening from the next room, going, "Oh my God, smack my bitch up! Can you say that?" Like. And this sort of stuff. But I love Prodigy as well. But the actual one I wrote down, was a bit of Regulate by Nate Dogg and Warren G.
nice.
That was a big clubbing song. And still, like, if my mates are out now, they'll be like, we need something to bop to, like, and they'll put
Yeah,
it on the iPod and everyone start dancing around the kitchen, like, so
that's a
uh,
tune.
it is such a tune. And again, a cool intro. As soon as it hits, it's like
Yeah,
it's so good. So
yeah.
yeah, that was definitely the soundtrack of my clubbing days are going in.
Regulates the Hall and Oates sample, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, yeah, it
Oh,
is.
and
Yeah,
Michael McDonald. I keep forgetting. No, I don't know anyone.
it's
That's
definitely a sample from something. Yes.
yeah, yeah. It's Michael McDonald. It's not Hall and Oates. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah. That's an absolute tune. All right. Well, let's take you home. And for track 6, Danny, tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
Yeah. So Bell X1 are well, they're actually from the next county over, but they're close enough.
I'll let you have it.
Yeah, thanks. Their lead singer now lives in Dublin anyway. So yeah, but yeah, I could have picked a lot of. I was thinking about this question. I could have picked a lot of different acts. I mean, I could have gone for someone big and obvious like Hosier or U2 or Damien Rice even, or Snow Patrol, and all bands that I love. Well, I suppose Snow Patrol from the north and Scotland, um, but yeah, there's so much amazing Dublin music, and even Dermot Kennedy now coming out. He's from up the road in Kildare as well. So, but I went for this band, Bell X1, who are one of my favorite bands, and this song, "Eve the Apple of My Eye," is just a lovely song. Again, they're a band that sort of I suppose for us, they were a band that again probably didn't take off outside Ireland, but had success here and broke through on radio here and had a bit of success in America. I think this song was on like Dawson's Creek or one of those sort of TV shows when that was a thing that used to happen all the time, or One Tree Hill or one of them, and
Yeah.
it's just a beautiful love song, and it's yeah, they're still one of my favorite bands. So I picked Bell X1 and Eve the Apple of My Eye.
That's a wonderful record. And I do remember, like, when there was a push to make
Yeah.
them like big in the UK.
Was there? Yeah, yeah,
I remember sort of being sent their promos and stuff to play in the clubs and that,
yeah,
and I'm sure I saw them as well, quite early on in in the UK,
yeah.
in Chelmsford, playing live. And yeah, they're a great band. Are they still playing?
Yeah, they're still gigging. Now Paul has a sort of side project as well, called Houseplants, which are really good as well, and that's sort of more dancey. He's
Yeah,
singing with a DJ guy, and they sort of he's done some solo stuff as well, the lead singer. But yeah, amazing, and they were really one of those bands who just almost happened for, I think, on a bigger scale.
yeah.
But they've got some amazing tunes, and they're a great live band. Yeah, really good.
So I'm going to ask you, because every time I have an Irish musician on here, I ask them about this band, right? Because I'm
Yeah,
hoping one day someone's going to come on and go, "Oh yeah, this band." and nobody I ever mention it to has heard of them, right?
No way.
And if for somebody like you that loves Jeff Buckley, there's a band called the Prayer Boat.
I've
Never
never
heard of
heard
them.
of them. That is
Fucking
crazy.
hell, man!
And
Like,
they're an Irish band.
yeah, his
That are,
name's the singer's name's Emmett. What's his name? Emmett. Oh, I can't think. He's just got. No, I'm not a big Simply Red fan, but he's got a
right.
voice a bit like Mick Hucknall's
Yeah, yeah.
meets Jeff Buckley's.
No
It's
way.
stunning, and
It
like
sounds like I'd love them. I must check them out. The Prayer Boat.
the
Okay.
Prayer Boat, and the album's called Pinochet, I believe.
Okay.
It's on Spotify. They've got one album out, and if you like Jeff Buckley,
Yeah.
and I tell everybody, just listen to this record. I bought it at a boot sale, and it must have come out early to mid '90s. I bought it at a boot sale, and it's one of my favourite records. And
Cool.
I don't know anybody that knows anything about him, but I know that it's on Spotify now. And,
What's his second name? The Emmett guy. I want to just check this out.
he has put solo music out.
Yeah, because I would say
Are you googling away there?
I am. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah.
Like Google the Prayer Boat.
Yeah, yeah. I see it there. Paula Chanel is the name of the.
That's it.
Is the name of the song. That's the one. But let me just put it into Wiki and just see what if I know the guy.
But it's honestly, mate. Like you can thank me later because it's gonna blow you away, that record.
Okay,
you're gonna love it.
Okay, yeah, Emmett Tinley. I actually have. You said Emmett there, and I actually was like, I think, yeah, I've heard of Emmett Tinley. All right, so he must have had some solo stuff that that would probably be more in my time. But I have heard that name. All right, but that's interesting. I'm really excited about checking that stuff out.
Promise me you'll check it out. I want more people to know about it.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I will do. That's cool.
Wonderful. Okay, this is your opportunity to be a tastemaker and influencer. Danny. Tell me a song that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear, please.
Yeah, well, it's just it's one of those things where I'm just listening to this album at the moment. It's two Irish artists. Mick Flannery, who is an amazing singer songwriter from Cork. He has that sort of like Tom Waitsy vibe and beautiful sort of voice, and Susan O'Neill. And like the whole album is all duets, and it's like tells a story, like it's like a relationship of a guy and a girl, sort of rowing and breaking up and hating each other and spouting angry lyrics at each other, and it really just works. It really works really well, and so yeah, Mick Flannery and Susan O'Neill in the song I went for is Baby Talk, which is probably the big sing. Well, I wouldn't say big single, but it's the most well known one on that album. The album's called In the Game, but it's just really good. I'm a big fan of Mick as well. I could have picked him really in my favorite Irish artists as well, but so yeah, he's from Cork, so it's a bit far away. But yeah, so that's definitely an album worth checking out. It's a real coffee table album. Like you put it on in the background, and I promise you, everyone will be like, "What's that?" Like that's really cool. Like it's just really nice songwriting, real just soft on the ears, and nice arrangements and piano and sort of jazz house vibe, except it's emotional and accessible. Like it's not weird. It's good structured songs that are solid songs. So it's definitely worth checking out. I love that album.
Wonderful. I'll do you a deal. I'll listen to that. You listen to Prayer Boat, right?
100%.
Well, we also make it easy for everybody to go and find your recommendation, as well as go and listen to all of your other picks today, and obviously some of your own music as well. We've put together a Spotify playlist to accompany today's podcast. And so, as you mentioned, touring's back on and records are coming out. So tell us exactly what's going to be happening and where people can see you and when they can get the record.
Yeah, well, it's singles, or the album's coming out on October 7th. We've got 3 UK dates at the end of September. We're playing in Glasgow, Manchester, and Shepherd's Bush at the very end of September, in London. So yeah, we're pumped for that, and then we're going off on tour at the end of October, all around Europe, and then America in November, and Australia. So it's going to be a busy few months. I love being on the road. I love traveling and getting to see the world, especially after a 2.5 year hiatus. So yeah, we're buzzing, but all our music is we're on all those social things as well. But you can find all the info. Coronas.net has all the info on everything there.
Lovely. And if you're cool for us to tag you in this when this
Yeah,
comes out on the socials, then those that aren't following you already can go and keep up to speed with everything that's coming your way.
100%.
Um, Danny, it's been an absolute delight talking records with you, mate.
Likewise, really
Uh,
enjoyed it.
Lovely. I really, really appreciate your time, and I'm gonna get in touch with you in a week or so, and I want some feedback on that Prayer Boat album, right?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you so much. We got to drive. We're playing in Limerick tomorrow, so I've got a 2 hour drive. So I think I'll pencil it in for that.
Do
For
it,
listening.
brother. Do it. I'm gonna press stop. Don't go anywhere.
Cheers, bud.